This is the Ballroom State of Mind podcast, episode 115, The Fear of Being Seen. Good day, my friends. Welcome to the podcast. Who's excited? The Ohio Star Ball is in just a few days. I'm excited. I had 2 lessons this week. I had one today. I tried on a new dress. I haven't decided if I'm going to wear it or not at Ohio, but it's pretty great. And I had so much fun dancing in it. And we're solidifying our open routines and they're feeling better and better all the time. Something is really shifting in my dancing right now. And I don't know if it's that we've just, been working on these routines long enough that I'm starting to really find them in my body, but it's feeling really good. So I'm excited. No matter what, no matter how the results go, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just thinking about having fun and going to this big comp and probably capping off my year with this one. And I just want to have the best time. That's my favorite thing to do, is go to a comp and just have fun. That's why I do it. And I grow so much in pursuit of that. So that's the point. It's all the stuff I'm doing now. That's the reward, right? The comp is the reward. It's not the test, right? All right. So here's something that I want to talk about today. So I wanted to piggyback this episode off of the last one. So the last episode was about inner work and outer work. So we're going to continue that concept a little bit, but I'm going to talk about a specific example, and it's around the fear of being seen. This is something that I feel like is underlying a lot of our issues on the dance floor. And so I want to bring it up. I want to bring it up and give you something to think about with this. So I'm going to go way, way back to my childhood when I was growing up. And I feel like mostly I was such an interesting child because mostly I had a pretty good sense of who I was. You could call it confidence, but I wasn't showy. I was more of a reserved personality, but I did do things. I did do activities. I was totally happy to be an observer. This is why I'm a good coach, because I observe and perceive so much. I'm like a fly on the wall and I'm taking in so much. So I am happy to be an observer and be a little bit more reserved, but that meant I didn't really put myself out there a lot. But if I wanted to do something, I did. So if I wanted to do sports or activities, or I even tried out for some musicals, which was terrifying. But I could tolerate that. I could tolerate to some degree having some attention on me. But I didn't really love it or seek it out, but I could tolerate it if it was something that I cared about and wanted to be doing. But like most of us, I did feel uncomfortable with eyes on me. And I think we can all relate to that. Fast forward to when I started as a fitness instructor 12 years ago, and I can remember how raw and exposed I would feel sometimes when people were watching me. Now, when I was on the stage, it was interesting because if I had everything prepared and I knew what I was doing and I was ready to go, and I was up on a stage with even a room full of, at times, 100 people, I wasn't freaked out because that made sense. Right? It would make sense that their eyes were on me, but I was ready. I knew what I was doing and I was on a stage, and that made sense. But if I was in a room, a small room with a wood floor and some mirrors, and I was practicing some choreography, let's say for my class, some programming, they call it. If I was practicing the programming and somebody walked in, forget about it. Okay. I could not continue. It's I literally could not. It was too exposing. Somebody could be watching me do that. And that's so weird that I would be just in here by myself or whatever in front of this mirror. And it felt so exposing and I felt so self-conscious. Right. And so that would be the end of it. I would just not be able to do it. And I even remember in the beginning being really uncomfortable being in front of a mirror. Even that alone, I didn't spend a lot of time looking at myself in the mirror. And I probably had some thoughts about how I looked in the mirror. And so I might have been uncomfortable even watching myself. But as time went on, I got more and more used to watching myself in the mirror. And now it's no big deal. But I even felt this most recently. I've historically always worked out in group fitness classes where there's a lot of other people and somebody's directing me. And most recently, I've been trying to just work out on my own. And I have some programming that I want to do, some, weights that I want to lift or whatever. moves I want to do. And I feel so self-conscious when I go into the weight room and I want to start doing this workout. I feel like people are watching me and I feel like they're judging me or they're evaluating what I'm doing. And as humans, I feel like we have this spotlight effect sometimes where we just think everybody's watching us and everybody's concerned about us and everybody cares about what we're doing like we're important. But most people, that does happen sometimes, but or in moments, but most people are worried about their own self and that everybody's watching them. So it's kind of a fallacy. It's a little bit true, but it's also kind of a fallacy. Maybe you can relate to this when you're on the dance floor, because maybe you're on the dance floor in a lesson or a practice and you're like in the zone. And then somebody walks in. Somebody walks in for their lesson's after you, or somebody walks in and you're practicing and they kind of look your way. You become so hyper aware that somebody came into the room and suddenly everything changes. Like, so instead of like enjoying the music or focusing on your movement, you're distracted and suddenly you become very aware of yourself. And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, what are they going to think about me? Am I good enough? Like, am I doing this right? Does this look bad? Are they judging me? Do I even belong here? Like me, if you feel that someone is perceiving you or seeing you, it might be completely hard to concentrate anymore. So if that sounds familiar, you are not alone. So today I want to just dive into this concept a little bit of the fear of being seen. And I want to relate it to the inner work and the outer work that we talked about last time. So the fear of being seen or the fear of being perceived is sometimes called scopophobia. And that would probably be the clinical term. And that would probably be in extreme cases. But even in extreme cases, it can cause a lot of like physical issues and anxiety attacks and panic attacks and stomach aches. And so it can, in extreme cases, we can become very debilitated by this scopophobia. So this fear might show up in dancers as some self-consciousness. That would probably be like the low end, right? Is like, oh, I'm just really self-conscious. It can show up as imposter syndrome. Like people are going to see me and they're going to like find out the truth about me, right? Or it can even result in kind of that fight or flight response because we're on alert thinking people are thinking something about us negative. So this can all happen in dance. It can especially happen when we're talking about competitions or whatever, where we are literally being judged and people literally are watching us, or they're spectators for like a showcase. You might notice this, especially if you're dancing and you feel a sense of, I just want to hurry up and finish this and get off the floor so that I can get back into the safety of the shadows, the safety of not being seen. Or you might notice it when you're in the middle of like a rumba routine. We're at a comp, let's say, we're dancing, and all of a sudden you lock eyes with this. I've done this so many times. You lock eyes with a spectator, like a judge, and suddenly you like snap back to reality and you're sucked out of the zone and you like lose your mind for a second because all of a sudden you realize somebody is perceiving me. And even though we know that's part of it, it just does weird stuff to our heads. Okay. And then it's hard to get back into the groove. So what I want to talk about today is I want to explore like why this might exist for us, how it might be impacting your dancing, and really how we can overcome it too. So let's talk again about inner work and outer work in this case. So in this case, with the fear of being seen, I think many dancers would focus on what would be the outer work. It's like, oh, if I'm uncomfortable on the floor, if I'm like worried about what people are perceiving, I might really heavily focus on my technique and being like the best dancer that I can be. And not that these are wrong, they're not. But the outer work looks like perfecting my technique, being the best dancer that I can be, obsessing about my choreography, obsessing about how good I look when I'm dancing. We might focus on the outer work of our appearance. Like, am I wearing the right dress? Do I have the right hair and makeup? Am I going to the right hair and makeup person? And we might think about the outer work as, well, maybe I don't want people to see me or I'm uncomfortable with that because I don't like my body. And so I want to lose weight. I want to be more fit. Okay. And that will all help me feel more confident. I see a lot of people wanting to focus on the outer stuff, which again is not wrong. It's very good and very important. If I'm going to be perceived, well, then I will make what people will see as good as I can make it. But what I talked about last week and what I want to just reiterate is that the lasting change, the deep change for who we want to become as a dancer is best served when we combine that outer work with the inner work. And that inner work is going to look probably like accepting yourself a little bit more, calming your nervous system, and addressing some of those beliefs that hold you back. So let's dive into this a little bit more. What is the fear of being seen, or scopophobia? What does it look like for dancers? So maybe you feel a knot in your stomach as you step onto the floor, or your thoughts are racing with doubts about how others are perceiving you, or maybe you feel like an imposter, as if, again, like everybody's going to discover the truth about you. And again, you might also notice that desire to rush through the performance or practice, especially when there's people around. This can also manifest when we're watching our videos, because since we often struggle to watch our own videos without pointing out every flaw, we assume, oh, everyone else must feel that way when they watch us. And these kinds of feelings just make it hard to focus, makes it hard to stay present, makes it hard to enjoy our dancing. And our nervous systems can kind of get stuck in this fight or flight, and it can keep you on edge. So why might this happen? Why does this fear exist? And there's probably a lot of reasons. One of them being just deep, probably how we were raised, right? So if we had a particularly critical parent, for example, or a critical adult in our life, might have even been a different relationship that we were in, might have been a teacher that we had, it might be a previous teacher that we had that was especially critical and pointed out everything that we did wrong. Okay. Then it's possible you think everybody's scrutinizing your every move. Everybody's watching you closely. Everybody's judging you harshly. And if someone in your life noticed what you did or didn't do and then judged you for it and told you about it and did that in a harsh, critical way all the time, then you would naturally think that's how the world works. And that would make you feel like you're on this like stage and that everybody's watching you and judging you. Another thing is just, cultural and societal pressures. We're all conditioned in some way, shape, or form to show up in certain ways. There's ways that we think are appropriate. There's ways that we think are polite. There's ways that we just believe that we need to act in order to be acceptable to others. Are we behaving in ways that everyone thinks is okay? And that's what helps us stay safe. And that's what helps us stay in the tribe. And so we are going to be concerned about that. And we don't want to draw negative attention. So we might have some awareness around, some self-consciousness around, am I okay? Am I behaving okay? Because culture and society dictates that. That's how we all get along. That's how we all cooperate. And that's all really normal. Often the root of this isn't quite the fear of being seen, but what's going to happen after that. So after someone sees me, perceives me, will they reject me? And this is what especially lights up our nervous system, because this is death to us. I've told you guys 1,000 times, rejection is death to our brain, not being accepted and being rejected. So if someone sees me and they don't like what they see, or if I'm not showing up in the ways that they think or would desire me to, if I'm not showing up in a way that would please them, will they reject me? And we just don't know. So it's very disconcerting. Notice if you frequently, this is a key point, my friends, if you frequently reject yourself, then you are not going to want people to see you. You are not going to want people to perceive you, because if you are rejecting you, they would probably do the same. Okay. When these kinds of beliefs take hold, these kinds of like expectations from society and all that, it's no wonder we feel self-conscious and we feel uneasy on the dance floor. And while it's tempting to focus on the outer solutions exclusively, like improving your technique or your look or whatever, the real transformation, is going to come from incorporating that inner work as well. So let's just talk about those two things. The outer work, the things that the dancers might focus on, when you dancers might focus on when we feel self-conscious or uncomfortable, might be obviously practicing more to perfect your technique and really focusing on this, right? Excessive coachings, excessive hours in the studio, drilling things over and over again. And again, This outer work is not bad. I just want us to notice if it's just we're heavily relying on it, and in a way that's like might not be the healthiest. Sometimes we might choose to lose weight. I definitely have clients who I know are hiding and I know are not dancing. Sometimes they're not even dancing at all because they're uncomfortable with their body shape and that they're out of shape and that they've gained some weight and they're holding themselves back. And so for them, they're believing that to feel comfortable, I'm going to have to lose weight first, and that's the problem. Okay. We might work on getting fitter so that we can feel confident. And that does work. I mean, it does. If I'm smaller, if I'm more comfortable with my body, if I'm happier with my body, I'm not as worried about people seeing it. Okay. That's the water we're swimming in this Western society. Another thing you might do, like I said, is polishing your look with like your costumes and buying a more expensive dress or a better designer, going to a different hair and makeup person. I've even seen people change partners because they want to drive a nicer car. And if I'm driving a nicer car on the floor, then I will feel more comfortable on the floor. And again, it's not that these things don't work. They are all valuable efforts and they can help. But here's the catch is what's happening underneath all that that's causing our fear of being seen in the first place. The outer work alone doesn't address the root of the problem. You might perfect your spins or get in the best shape of your life. But if you haven't worked on that underlying fear, the underlying beliefs driving that fear, then that discomfort's still going to be there in some way, or it's going to come back. Or as soon as you put weight back on or whatever, you're going to go back to that fear of being seen. So this is where that inner work becomes essential. So the inner work is all about addressing the emotional and mental blocks that make you afraid of being seen. So this is all relationship with self. This is like a key thing that I teach, and maybe it gets annoying to hear it, but you guys, we gotta be kinder to ourselves. We gotta have better relationships with ourselves. We have to have more acceptance rather. We gotta transform our relationship with ourselves so that we can feel confident and comfortable in our own skin, kind of no matter what the conditions are. So here's some examples. Have more self-love. We're so resistant to this. Maybe we think it doesn't work. Maybe we think it can't be that. Maybe we think by having better self-love and better self-acceptance, we're going to become complacent. I just don't think that's true. But notice, if you don't like yourself, if you don't like your body, you will not feel okay with other people seeing it. That's just it. Okay. Inner work means learning to appreciate yourself as you are today, not some future version of you. You start to feel okay with you, you're going to feel more okay with other people seeing you. We also need to release perfectionism. Perfectionism says that if you're not flawless, you don't deserve to be seen. And let me tell you how I hear this. This is where, like, we don't think it's okay to be out there on the floor if we're not perfect. We think we shouldn't make mistakes. If you're excessively overthinking and you can't relax because we're trying so hard to control our movements and control and get it just exactly right, then there's some version of us that is believing that I have to do this exactly right or I shouldn't be here. This also sounds like if I'm not good at this, I shouldn't do it. Like if I'm not winning, why should I do it? And that's implying that for you to be worthy of being out there on the floor, you need to be good at it. But you don't have to be good at it. You can just do it because you love it, right? So release some perfectionism that's telling you you don't deserve to be seen unless you're doing it well or right or correct. You will overthink and you will force or control your moves with rigidity rather than finesse. Inner work is about embracing those imperfections, or at least accepting that they are a part of the process and realizing they are part of what makes you human and relatable. I was just having a conversation with some friends the other day. This is a little bit different, but about people who have a really immaculately clean house. There's nothing wrong with that, but I am so, and it's even like desirable in a lot of ways, but I am so uncomfortable when I'm in a house that's that clean because I feel like I can't relax. Perfectionism, as much as we think that's what we want, it's not relatable because we know we're not perfect and we're never going to be 100% perfect. So it's hard to relate to. It actually can make us feel uncomfortable. So another piece of inner work is to calm your nervous system. And the fear of being seen is that like fear of rejection potentially, and that will for sure trigger a fight or flight response. So the inner work would include things like deep breathing and managing our nervous systems, soothing ourselves, grounding ourselves, bringing ourselves into the present, practicing mindfulness, practicing visualizations, helping us just stay regulated and feel safe, like establishing safety, we call it, which again also speaks to that fear of rejection, because that's what often makes us feel emotionally unsafe, is that fear of rejection. Now, listen, these practices, they're not just abstract concepts. They make a real difference in how you show up, not just in dance, but in life. This is a meta skill. There's so much power in combining the inner work and the outer work. The changes that you make externally become easier and more meaningful when they're supported by that inner transformation as well. So here's just a few steps on how to do this. Okay. Number one, just reflect on this. Ask yourself, what beliefs are making me afraid to be seen? What might I be believing that's making me afraid to be seen? What conditioning do I have that's holding me back? Write it down, challenge whether that's really true. You might also ask, this is another way I ask it, is what's underneath this? Is there anything underneath this that would be helpful to address? And that is like pulling the weed out from the root instead of just continually mowing it down with a lawnmower. So when you have an idea about what that might be, what might be underneath it, then we're going to move to step 2, which is to pair an inner goal with an outer goal. So for every external goal, like if I want to improve my technique or I want to improve my fitness, let's set an internal goal, like practicing self-compassion or embracing our imperfections. Like what can we pair with that outer goal to help assist it? Okay. And then the third step is to celebrate progress in both areas. Take the time to acknowledge your growth, both in your skills and in your mindset. Take time to acknowledge your growth in both the inner work and the outer work. Maybe you nailed that routine and you felt a little less self-conscious while doing it. That's worth celebrating. I was noticing in my lesson today, I was able to kind of like juxtapose when I was a younger dancer and I was earlier in my dancing, and I felt really uncomfortable in certain moments with my partner, with my teacher, just normal discomfort, right? Of like having to look somebody in the eye or like having to stand really close to them and feeling like that's kind of weird. And then now a little bit more experience that I have, a little bit more inner work that I've done with my own acceptance, and being so much more comfortable being in the presence of somebody else and making eye contact with them and not worrying about what they think about me or not worrying about what people might perceive. Like celebrate those moments where you notice, oh, I'm so much more comfortable than I used to be. Oh, I'm not as in my head as I used to be. Oh, notice how, I noticed when I could be in a room and I could be in front of a mirror and I was not uncomfortable looking at myself in the mirror. And I could be in a room and I could be dancing all by myself and somebody could walk in and I did not give a crap. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've changed. Like I accept myself more. I'm willing to let people see me more. Celebrate those changes. Remember that outer work is going to help you improve your skills, but the inner work is going to change how you experience all of this. It's going to change you as a human, not just in your dancing. So this fear of being seen is a challenge for lots of dancers. It's also just such an incredible opportunity for growth. So as you combine your inner work and your outer work, it will also help you move past that self-consciousness. And you're going to step into the version of you that feels confident and feels grounded and feels free, both on and off the dance floor. So just take a moment to reflect and pick an inner belief that you could work on this week. Okay. How could you make your outer work feel a little bit easier or a little bit more enjoyable by focusing also a little bit on that inner work? So thanks for joining me today, revisiting this concept of inner work and outer work, especially in this instance of the fear of being seen. I think the fear of being seen, the fear of being perceived is a super interesting concept to explore. I don't even think I did it justice today. I think you should think about it. I think you should really ponder on this this fear of being seen. And if you have a certain amount of fear of being seen, and I wonder why. Okay. Remember, this is about progress, not perfection. And you are worthy of being seen right where you are. All versions of you deserve love. Okay. I love you guys. Will I see you in Ohio? I hope so. Come find me. Okay. Catch you next time.